Thanks, Kamal. At the outset, I'll possibly park those two words. I wouldn't say they are intrusive, but I would say they are inclusive. And let me possibly supplement with a few things. Number one, first and foremost, we are packing so much into machines through technology today. I mean, we're not just talking of artificial intelligence alone at the manufacturing robotics, but service robotics will come into play. And we're packing so much into it. And I would imagine, I'll play into Prajal by saying, in another 3 years from now, we would have a bot sitting here asking us the question, what's in it for me, along with you guys? So few of us did touch upon the coexistence of machines along with us. So that's the aspect that we're going to be looking at. All this has been evolution. Did any one of us write a script in terms of where we are today? None of us did, right? But we are better than what we anticipated. Most of us are possibly better than what we anticipated. That's the impact of technology. I mean, I was sharing a story with the first incident that happened to me with Kamal. I wouldn't narrate that just for paucity of time. But right from a very fearful embracing of technology to what is going to unfold, it does unleash a series of behaviors. But the fact is, if we've got to really look at happiness, there are a few aspects which do come into play and which plays as a prelude, which are, I mean, definitely you need mysteries, you need adventure, you need surprises, you need those anxiety buckets. Look at all the happiness that we've gone through in our lives. The instances that have really given us joy, which we recall fondly all through our lives, have had those instances. And today, in a situation where we have a triad of realities, and we're playing into three, and we all classically conventional HR lifers do multiple things. Business goes through ups and downs. People, we try to project, and we keep talking about conventional stuff like, career stations, career graphs, competencies, all that stuff. We still keep talking about balanced work life. People have sacrificed careers for life. People are talking about different things. So, and the third element that's coming into the triad is the technology bit of it. So how we handle this is very unique, and I think all the speakers ahead of me have said the same stuff, and I'm sure through the day it'll come. It's not a customized approach that anyone can take. It's very, very individual to every single aspect. So for me, I think happiness is nothing but, I'm trying to coin my own stuff. I'm not as, research-oriented as Professor Srinivas, but I would say, I was trying to coin something and I was looking in the mirror. What's happiness? I think if I were to look at it, I mean, everybody brings the whole bit of it into workplace. The physical, the mental, the emotional, and the cultural, or the social as we call it today. But then there is a fifth element which is coming into play, which is driving this all together, and that's the soul. And the energy that comes out of the soul is what's driving happiness, and that's different for everybody. So when we're getting into technologies and when we're packing so much of stuff into it, let there be an element of surprise, anxiety, fear, but it's a question of how we're going to embrace each one of that. And I think the demographics part of it, Rani did speak about it, but I have my own view. And a lot of us get very apprehensive if you're on the wrong side of the age to say, learning agility through technology comes from the lower end of the demographics. Wisdom comes from the higher end of it. And then there is a technology disruption that happens through the machines with the amount of stuff that we are packing it in with. I think it's a confluence of all of this which will drive workplace of tomorrow. And it's somewhere that sweet spot or the black box, it's a choice that we make. It's not something which is as a chance, you live it by chance, or it's something which is thrusted on you. It's a way of life. Let's live it that way through technology.
Thank you, Rajesh. I think we've been referring to different levels of happiness at a philosophical level, at a principle level, and we also saw some slides about how happiness can be defined. But when you actually apply that practically in the organization context, it has to reside somewhere, and most of the times the place that we go to for these kind of things is HR, right? Whatever new things have to come into play, the CEO's pitch shop will be to go to actually HR and said, would you do it? These are the things we want. And whenever the attrition is high, that means people are unhappy and leaving is the only way we look at it. or let's say the engagement is high, we look at HR. So want to ask the HR person that who's responsible for happiness? Is it the CEO? Is it the HR? Who else?
Okay, so I'm assuming that's addressed to me, Kamal. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, and before I respond, I'm going to take a quick permission from the audience to be a little fun and a little irreverent. So if you guys are okay, I'm not going to be talking too seriously. I hope that's okay. Yeah. So I think I'm going to start with saying happiness is rapidly becoming a industry. Okay, I mean, it's becoming like, okay, come, let me hire a happiness coach. All my conferences would be started with one music and dance, and we're going to all do a little jig for 10 minutes, and, energy will be up, endorphins will be up, and, happiness is established. And I mean, forget HR, I just heard happiness officer. So I think now we'll have a happiness department very soon. So I have a complete contrarian view on this whole happiness jingbing, and just to get some fun going, let me just take a contra stance. Yeah. So I'm going to say that, happiness starts with me, happiness starts with you, and my happiness is my happiness, your happiness is your happiness. And honestly, today, and it doesn't matter whether you're a millennial, baby boomer, or whichever is your age, people are getting very close to what gives them happiness, And if they don't find it in this workplace, trust me, no one is dependent on an organization anymore to be happy, We know enough and more people who do part-timing, who kind of take sabbaticals, and, I was sharing with Kamal earlier on, in my era, 20 years ago, it was blasphemy to take a sabbatical, and, people during interviews would say, acha, 2 years break, what was that about, Today, it's just normal. I mean, I have enough people in my team who say, you know what, I want to write a book. I want to go see the world before I come back to this corporate thing, and I just feel like, wow, so people are so in touch with what is their happiness, and I think the ability to take risks, and it's not just the youngsters. I think, we know enough and more people, and some people call it midlife crisis, but there are enough and more people who at a point in time say, okay, I don't want to do this finance anymore, I'd rather kind of be a coach. I'd actually want to stop doing all this, and I'd rather go and give cricket commentaries, I mean, so I think we all know these people who've actually identified what is their flow, and probably this is the only technical term I'll throw in here. I mean, that thing which I do, which gives me a sense of timelessness, And we all know this, right? I mean, there are some things when we do it, time just flies by. And then there are some things that we do, and, every minute seems like an hour, and it's like we are watching our, clocks to say, okay, when is this going to end, and, when can we get on to the other things? So I think there are just two simple points that I want to kind of just throw into the mix here. I think first is an acknowledgement and a realization that happiness is very individual. And I think we need to kind of, if we go back into ancient India, and the way education was imparted there, no one said, oh, you need to be getting a laptop, or, you need to be getting this much money, or be a bigger rat to be happy. Get up, breathe, And if you can breathe, wow, celebrate the fact that you can breathe. And I think Prabir alluded to that in the morning. Versus putting so many conditions on happiness, And just if we rethink our own individual frames to say, look, happiness is what we are, and we need reasons to be unhappy, otherwise the natural state is a state of happiness, That changes how we live our lives, And I think if the invitation to the entire universe, not just our families and our workspaces and our life spaces, if the invitation is that, let's just really think, why are we making everything so damn conditional, And why can't we just choose to be happy as a natural state, okay? So that's maybe the first simple, thing that I'll throw. And I think related to that, two small interventions that, we are doing at Mondelez. And I mean, it's more about saying, look, happiness sits with the individual. The only thing that the organization can do, and I'm very consciously not saying HR can do, the only thing that the organization can do is to kind of see if they can create a space which allows everyone to chase their happiness, And again, I don't mean go grab 2 drinks, feel high and happy. No, where people find their flow or purpose, as Rani indicated, So, I mean, how do we do that? And I think there are just 2 very simple things that we do. I think the first thing we do is we really encourage people to be reflective, and we have a framework for it called me, us, and it. And it really starts by saying, till me is solved, we are not going to be thinking us. until me and us are jiving, we are not going to be focused on it, which is the work, So it's me, us, and it in that order, And I think the second belief that we have is, I think instead of looking up always to say, okay, there is a CEO, there is a CHRO, there is my leader who has to make me happy. Honestly, in addition to me, because we are social beings, our happiness is defined by who do we chat with and connect with on a day-to-day basis, which is actually the peer group, which is the ecosystem that I work with, which could be my customer, which could be, And because I'm not dependent on the organization is getting scared now to say, okay, I better create an ecosystem wherein the person wants to kind of come and be here. And trust me, what is that ecosystem we are creating? We're just creating some communities, So you just created multiple communities and multiple interest groups. So there is a community on innovation. I mean, it doesn't say only marketing or R&D can be part of the community. But anyone who gets a mojo talking innovation is part of that community. And these are voluntary communities. There is no mandate. But it gives people spaces to kind of pursue what they want, which is aligned to what the organization wants. And I think these are two very simple enablers we've created. So net, I think if I had to summarize, I would say happiness is the responsibility of everyone. Enabling it is the responsibility of everyone around for each other. And yeah, I mean, let's not create new industries. Of course, employment generation is a good idea, but let's not create new industries of happiness coach, happiness courses. Sorry, I took permission early on. So no happiness courses, no happiness coaches, no little jig and moments of happiness, but more to say, come, let's just celebrate life and every day is happy.
Thank you, Mahalakshmi. But if I, with your permission, put you in a spot there, my question was a little more specific. Why are you running away from not asking HR or CEO to own it up? Because organizations are run by people. It's still hierarchical. We can say we are flat and all that stuff, but those are nice jargons to be used in the organization context. But there's still leadership, there are managers, there are layers. So if it is so important as, we are even spending a day on happiness, the whole day, shouldn't it be somebody's responsibility? Why should we generalize it saying it is for everybody to own up? We know if everybody had to own up jobs, we wouldn't have departments, we wouldn't have managers, we wouldn't have CEOs. But shouldn't somebody own it up?
Okay, so that's a great poser. So let me attempt it, So I think broadly, I don't think we are running away. I think my hypothesis is the minute you start measuring, you're communicating something, The minute I say, okay, I'm going to measure this and put this department accountable, you're taking accountability away from the individual, So I don't think I'm, by the way, not at all propagating that the organization as a body or an ecosystem or leaders as people who are accountable to deliver whatever results that they're accountable should not be taking that onus, no. But for them alone to take that onus and for us to start measuring them for the happiness of their employees suddenly makes it, you will solve it for me, rather than creating a awareness, and let me talk about one of the small programs that we have around the Me, Us, It framework that I spoke about. It's called Being at My Best. And it really spends time with people talking about how do I actualize the me, and what is my me, So which is called Being at My Best, and it really talks about resilience. It talks about pauses. It talks about reflection and then action, instead of reaction, So now essentially the philosophy maybe that I'm putting on the table, for everyone is to say, instead of holding that person accountable for happiness or that department, we are all accountable for it together, and therefore when we say we need to be a happy place, a lot of it is the energy that we transmit to each other when we say first hello, or as again, I'm going back again to what Prabir said, how was your weekend, how are you doing today? That 3-minute creates that energy or not, and all I'm trying to say is let's not absolve the accountability of the individual who is actually, I don't think any individual gets out of bed every morning saying, today I will not be happy. Yeah. So everyone wants to be happy. But I think if we can encourage and put the onus back on that individual and make that person